welcome everyone to the Stop Human Trafficking Coalition monthly meeting. It's open to the community and all our guests and all our visitors and all of our newbies and all of our faithful monthly attenders, attendees. Marcus, I don't even know what state you live in, but I know that you were a TEDx Como speaker. And that is where we met when I was also speaker back in 2017. And Marcus, we were at a kind of reception for the TEDx Como speakers. And an emergency came up for me with a survivor, and we needed to help move some things. And Marcus and another, an intern I had at the time, we all went together. And so Marcus had firsthand experience kind of just jumping in to help the coalition with an emergency that had come up that involved some moving, and just appreciated him. So he has since that time been very interested in and passionate about our cause. He is a motivational speaker and has written a book. He invited me to be on his blog a few months ago, and he has a fundraiser he is doing called the 4x4x48. In an effort to combat the modern day slavery of human trafficking, beginning March 5th, which is tomorrow. There you are. Hi, Marcus.
Hey, sorry about that.
That's okay. He's running 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Wow.
And he started a GoFundMe page with a goal of $10,000 for the Stop Human Trafficking Coalition of Central Missouri. So Marcus, please take a little time to introduce yourself and say why you're doing this. And I know you have to go after you share, but please, we want to make sure folks know about you and can support you and cheering you on for tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Nanette. And the reason I'm doing this is because of your speech, your TEDx in 2017, when I got to meet you, seeing your work, getting to see how powerful it is and how integral you are to all this, seeing how long you've done it. As you know, there are other charities that will talk to speakers or authors or coaches, but knowing you and knowing how long you've done this, I know that this money will do the most that it can. You know, every penny will make a difference. And right now, the goal is 10,000. We're at around 2,000 right now. So we're almost a quarter of the way there, but I'm really pushing as hard as I can on social media. People that are followers of me are probably sick of seeing me at this point. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put little snippets of the TEDx, little snippets of our normal content, and then a lot of people have been generous enough to share it. So even people that say I don't have any money, that's okay. You can share it easily on social media, wherever you're at. It costs no money to do that. And I understand that right now some people may be going through hardship, but if everybody collectively comes together, even if everybody gave $1, that would easily help us hit our goal quickly. And in my opinion, 10,000 is the bare minimum. I would like to do more, obviously, but that's the goal. And I know that if I don't have an audacious goal, that it won't motivate people to really do that. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm going to fast for that 48 hours. So I will consume nothing other than water and breath. And the goal is to show people that, as you know, with my book's called The Gift of Adversity. My TEDx that I got to do with Nanette is called The Gift of Adversity. For those of you that don't know, in 2012, I was in the military. I was in the light infantry at 10th Mountain Light Infantry Division. And I suffered a severe spinal injury that left me paralyzed from the neck down. I died on the operating table twice, and they told me, you know, the good news is you get to live to tell the tale. The bad news is you're going to be like this for the rest of your life. And it made me reevaluate everything, every thought, every trauma, every regret, every moment of my life that I had wasted, that I had put off until tomorrow. When I had the opportunity to actually begin to recover and I got past all that darkness, I swore to myself that if I ever had a chance to walk again, that I would never hesitate, never compromise, and I would act violently towards these things that mean the most towards me. And this is the charity that means so much to me. So I'm attacking this with as much strength as I possibly can. I'll start running tomorrow night at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. I'll run 4 miles, and then at 2 o'clock a.m. tomorrow morning, I'll run. 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, I'll run. 10 a.m. I'll run. And I'm doing this all the way until Sunday night at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. And this is a challenge that was actually put out by David Goggins. If any of you have heard of Can't Hurt Me, he's an ex-Navy SEAL. He runs 200 miles at a time.
Ooh.
So by the time I'm done with this, I'll have run 48 miles in 48 hours, the equivalent of almost 2 marathons. And I'm not really a runner, but the adversity that we can endure on our own can be powerful, but the adversity that we endure for others is much higher. So if I'm trying to lead people and I'm trying to inspire people to take action and to change their lives and to help other people, then how can I possibly do that unless I am trying to lead by example, unless I'm trying to push myself, unless I'm demanding the most that I can from myself. And it's forcing me to really level up. As Nanette, as you know, because of the injury, there's a lot of sort of limitation on how fast I can run, but yet I'm still going to give it everything that I have. And that's the goal here, is to just put myself out there to try to inspire and motivate others to do something, to take, if nothing else, and nobody gives any money and they don't even share it on social media, if they are more aware of human trafficking and child sex rings and how many people are in the modern day slavery of human trafficking now, and the 25 different kinds of human trafficking and how far reaching that is, then that alone means that we've forwarded the cause. And that's the way I look at it. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for your work. For those of you that don't know Nanette as well as I do, this woman is tireless. She gives everything all the time. She is never off duty. She is always available at the drop of a hat. And I don't know anybody else who is more dedicated to this sort of cause. Again, there are even local charities around here that have asked me to be a part of some of this. And I still help them. I still donate and I still speak to help raise funds for them. But like I said, if I raise $10,000 and I give it to Nanette, I know that it will go and it will benefit. She's been around this for so long that she can make the most of it. But if I give it to a local group here and they're a new 501c3, they may just pay their chairs. And now that hasn't done anything. So there are some places, even as a veteran, there are some organizations that are very popular, but there are 7 cents on the dollar they get to that veteran who needs it, who's homeless, who's addicted to alcohol, drugs, who has PTSD, who needs medication. And I can't stand for that. I'm not going to support something that I don't know exactly where it goes. And so that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm motivated and excited, and I'm honored to do this. So thank you for having me, Nanette.
Thank you, Mark. Could we give a round of applause and support to Marcus, please? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I thank you, Marcus. So 10 o'clock, what time tomorrow?
I'll start running tomorrow night. You're in Central Standard Time, right?
Yes, yes.
So tomorrow night at 10 p.m., I'll start my first 4 miles, and then I'll take a shower. And my goal for this is to make this 48 hours of presence. So I'm going to reflect on this. I'm going to try to see what bubbles up. I'm going to try to see what hardship comes up and see how I react to that. And I'm going to try to use this as an opportunity to, like a moving form of meditation. And then if I can sleep a little bit in between there, I will. And if I can't, then I'm just going to journal and try to do as much as I can to create the most from this as a way to help others and myself. So that's it.
I have no words. You've said it all, Marcus, and you have lifted up, I'm sure I can say safely, you have offered some inspiration to everyone here listening to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, if you haven't heard Nanette's TEDx, there is so much great material and there's so much content. And the thing too is, the more that we know about this, she connected all the dots for me to understand how if I buy a shirt for $7 somewhere, that it's literally affecting a person who may have been in human trafficking in China. How all these things connect, how social media connects, how it's not just about human trafficking, it's about people that are taken from these places and put in a position where now they're being victimized, they're being commercialized, they're being used. And it's interesting how politically people can be divided and religiously people can be divided, but this is a cause that everyone can unite towards. In my opinion, this can bring us all together. You can fight about all the semantics of everything else, all that you want, but if you cannot agree that of human rights, human freedom is the most important one, then I don't know what to tell you guys. And that's the way I try to look at it. If that's the common denominator that bonds us, I said that as citizens, this is the thing that we have to know, that Bruce Lee says that we are all one family, in his opinion, under heaven. So we can fight about little other things later on, that's fine. But let's save these people first. Let's end this in our lifetime. Let's not tolerate this. Let's not allow this to just happen. Let's not turn a blind eye and act like we don't see it. Let's act like this is something that we can just go along in our everyday life and act like it's not there. Because once you see it, you cannot unring the bell. It's always there. I'm getting married soon and I have a 19-year-old stepdaughter, and I cannot imagine how I would feel if she was grabbed and taken somewhere and addicted to drugs and then put into a sex ring, or taken to Mexico, or taken to the Middle East somewhere, or taken to Asia, the Pacific Rim, right? There's no way that I could allow that to happen. And if I feel like that, and this is my stepdaughter, how was somebody else going to feel? So allow that to lead you and ask yourself, imagine the consequences if we do nothing. Imagine what happens if we just allow this, if we just tolerate this. We are complicit in this if we don't stand up against it in some way, shape, or form. And so that's why I'm standing up and trying to make as much noise about this as I can. They say you have to catch yourself on fire to get people's attention so that they will come and watch you burn. Well, I'm lighting a match tomorrow night at 10 p.m. So come and watch the show.
I love and I hate that analogy. So I'm not sure. There's mixed feelings about that.
I know.
Mixed imagery, but it's powerful.
Yeah.
I think that's the point of that, is that it's very powerful. Thank you, Marcus, and safe travels. And we'll have to do some FaceTime live with you.
Absolutely. I would be honored to do that.
All right. So I'll be talking to you very, very soon. Thank you so much, Marcus.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'll talk to you soon. Hey.
Okay. All right.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, goodness. Thank you, Marcus. So if you haven't found him on Facebook, please do find him and follow him. He's also on our Facebook as well. Lauren is a new board member. Lauren, where are you? There you are. My screen. Can you?
I'm here. Let me see if I can figure out technology.
Okay.
I know I'm able to, but I can't always.
There you are. We are 8 board members strong now, with Lauren's joining us. Lauren, welcome. If you'd like to share a few words of introduction to our group. Oh, we lost you. So Pete Selensky, I don't know, suddenly I can't say your name. Pete Selensky is a board member. Leah Cox, if you'd wave, you're a board member. There's Pete.
Sorry, eating dinner.
That's okay. Leela is our advisory board. We have Marie Tweedy, who's an intern with us. Who else is here? Audrey is on the board, if you would wave. Gina is a volunteer on our financial health committee and helping. She's going to be announcing about our membership. Ed Williams, if you want to wave, also on our board. Marlene is on our advisory board, also provides some direct support to survivors. And Stacy and Michelle are in Eldon. You have Christine in Lake Ozark. The St. Louis people want to wave. We have several St. Louis people. If you would like to wave, have joined us. Okay, and so we have a lot of announcements, and so let's make sure we have Lauren, if you would like to, are you back? I know you've got, where are you? Okay, if you would like to introduce yourselves as a new board member, say a little bit about who you are. Now that I've kind of got around to everybody.
She's still on. I'm Lauren.
Okay, audio is really bad, Lauren. Your audio was all chopped up, so I wonder, let's see, try again.
Let me, hang on. I could hear better when my video wasn't
Yes.
on. Can you hear me better now?
We can hear you better without having to see you, sorry. So,
Well, honestly, that feels normal for me. I am a radio personality. I'm on the Y107 morning show. I have a lot of experience with work. Previously, I was the a lot of girls in that time who had been trafficked. And that was kind of where the fire started for me. Because like Marcus said, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. So I'm really glad to be able to use my previous skill set and maybe a little bit of my platform now to be able to end this problem.
and so what we missed, and I'll just say for everybody, Lauren worked several years for an organization called HALO, which was a residential program for homeless girls. And so her experience with that, she certainly came across the girls who had experienced being sex trafficked. Okay, so I want to acknowledge the different organizations because I know our St. Louis people are here. I just want to help folks know who else in the state is doing things. And so Shima, if you would say what organization you're with in Rumi, that would be great.
Romy, do you want to go ahead?
I was muted. Go ahead, Sima, since you're on.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Shima Rostami. I'm Executive Director of Gateway Human Trafficking. Gateway Human Trafficking is an organization provides education and professional development for various experts in the field, as well as the general public. And I'm so happy to be with you tonight. Thank you, Ned, for everything you do.
Thank you. And Gateway Human Trafficking offers human trafficking education and special programs as well, available on Zoom. So they're a great resource. Let's see, anyone else would like to, oh, Stacey and Michelle, if you would share your announcement about the two events coming up in Eldon.
Okay, March 20th, we're having a viewing of Hope Road from Victim to Survivor here at Faith Baptist Church. It's all over Facebook. If you go to our page, you can get the link for it. And then on April 17th, we are going to have a 5K walk, run, and event. It's like got all kinds of stuff. We've got a silent auction, 50-50 raffle. We're even going to have a comedian, several speakers. We've got music and bounce houses, all kinds of stuff to do for the kids. So there's something for everybody. Try to raise money.
Thank you. Okay. I know Keith has joined us. He's new and just want to share briefly what you're going to be exploring and talking to Lorelei and Jana, who aren't on today, but those are some coalition volunteers. And so Keith, I know you're exploring a particular thing that you'd like to share about that.
Okay, is my audio working
Yes.
fine?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. You never quite know. I have an old Dell, so I'm completely green at this. Like, I'm 1 week into this, and I have friends in central Missouri here where I live. Lorelei, Jana, which you mentioned. And should I just tell the group what I'm getting into, I think? Yeah?
Yes,
Okay, sure.
briefly, yeah.
Lorelei takes care of several girls. That's not the right way to say it. Her and her sister are like master chefs, chocolatiers, and they are training these girls who have come out of this with some life skills. And Lorelei, she used to be a diver, and so divers use hand signals when they're underwater because they can't talk. So it's all hand gestures, I guess, body signs. So she had the concept, why can't we be teaching? Why can't we teach? Why is there no organization that she knows of that goes into public venues, schools, hospitals, businesses, grocery stores, and teaches like a nationwide hand sign of I'm in trouble, please call the cops now, or whatever. So that's what I'm doing on her behalf or with her. And I was going to go to DC. I will be close to DC in 2 weeks. And I talked with Nanette last week about, I think I talked with you about it, to go down to Polaris, not Polaris, but the national, whatever you called it, that's what it is. I forget the name.
Polaris Project, where the National Human
right.
Trafficking Hotline. Mm-hmm.
So I've called them 4 times, and all 4 times we're experiencing heavier than normal volumes. Please call later. If this is an emergency, call this number.
Oh.
So they must be swamped. That's all I can say. So
yeah,
I will probably email them this weekend and see where that goes. But phone calls have taken me nowhere. And if we don't get to contact anyone, then I think we're just going to do it on our own.
Yeah. So the idea Lorelei had with, like you said, she's a diver, and using like even a symbol like the letter C on a chest for children to be able to know that sign, so that an adult could then know that a cop need to be called. So just exploring. So that's why I wanted it shared, because I know you're all involved in this work. If you have ideas or thoughts about this, to please know that there's someone pursuing the possibility of this to help our children have some sort of indicator that also adults would know to be able to ask for help. So yeah, just another idea to try to find another way to help. Thank you.
In fact, let me ask if anyone here on this screen, if you have some input for me or some ideas. I don't have a notepad. I'm on a job. I'm at a resort right now in Missouri, and I'm not at home. So I had to make shift and just get on the table and do this. So I don't have my notepad, but I'll leave my email. If you have some ideas for me or some direction, I'll gladly take it. Because as I said, I'm very green.
So put it in the chat box, or also, you can contact me, because all these volunteers are right here in this area.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. And then Tracy, I know you're working. So like before you get called away, I just want to acknowledge, because we have the membership announcement, but also our speaker is going to be talking about how nurses can intersect and identify and serve and work with law enforcement and their victims. But I just want to acknowledge the work that you've done for the last years in bringing a team together with the university hospital system. to have the national hotline posters in all of our facilities, and have developed training and have been training personnel, have an online training. So would you share an update? Because I know you've taken time while you're at work to be here with us. You might, I think you're muted, Tracy.
I'm not sure if Tracy's there, but this is Heather Jones. I work with her. I think she's working on labor and delivery right now, and she said her baby was acting up. So I said I'd hop on.
Okay, thank you, Heather.
Hi. I also have 2 of my own babies here with me. So if you hear some background noise, I apologize. I'll be quick. But I just wanted to give you guys the big update that at MU Healthcare, we are getting ready to, we've been working on the inpatient side for a while, and we are getting ready to roll out to the ambulatory clinics our process of being able to recognize and then respond to human trafficking. So we're pretty excited about that, as that's been in the works for a while. So that's our update.
So this is Romy Price. So when you say ambulatory clinic, what does it entail? At least to the extent you planned.
What does
so what are you planning to do with the ambulatory?
We're training the healthcare workers in the clinics to be able to recognize signs and symptoms of human trafficking. And then if the issue that we ran into was a lot of them are not licensed, like an RN or an LPN, so they can't do an assessment. But so their observations, and they are notifying the provider, and then the providers were training to do the further assessment of asking questions, like isolating the patient and asking questions.
So what kind of curriculum are you using for the services?
Curriculum?
Yes.
We as far as like it's based off of, research from Polaris, from HEAL, but it's I guess I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
So you mentioned that basically you will be training there's nurses who have not been trained on human trafficking. Am I understanding that?
Oh, yes. We have like a web-based training that we put together. It's homegrown, but based on, literature that is out there, that is prevalent on all the websites as far as how to recognize, and then the response is individual to MU Healthcare.
So this team started 5 years ago. So they have already developed their training and PowerPoints and online training. And so Tracy, I don't know if you're able to speak and say any more, but we certainly had all the resources. You all had the resources like HEAL and Polaris. So go ahead, Tracy. I can see you.
It's great. Yeah, great.
Yeah, we could definitely, if you are interested in looking at more of it, we can definitely share it with you. Yeah, that's something we can get out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Tracy. And good work for the team. And I know we wanting to connect all the healthcare providers who are doing this work, because it's not standardized across the state of Missouri. And I know that Christina is also here. She's with the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Just want to give her a quick chance if there's anything she'd like to say in terms of representing law enforcement along with Ed. If there's anything either one of you want to speak to in terms of law enforcement.
I like the idea of a universal code. That's a great, definitely a lot to think about there as far as keeping our victims safe as we implement something like that and teach it. And I'm super excited about our healthcare system implementing all of their training and us coming together and Nanette, the hard work that you and all the other coalitions that are doing to help connect us so that we have connections and can help save our victims and bring all our hard work to fruition and our victims to safety. So I just want to applaud everybody for their hard work and kind of like what everybody talked about. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. They're like coffee grounds in your coffee. You can't get them out. So what do you do about them? You make the best of a bad situation. And I feel like that's what everybody's doing. And I encourage you in your endeavors. And I'm excited about us working together and continuing in our work.
Thank you, Christina. Ed, anything you want to add from law enforcement perspective?
I think Christina said it best. I think we do need a universal code that, we can all work together with and, further assist the victims.
Okay, good feedback for you, Keith, and good place to have brought this up. I'm glad you're with us that we could talk about this.
Question, is no one doing that you know of nationwide?
Heidi's shaking her. Nope, nobody is.
So Lorelai's on it. This is her idea. Okay,
yeah.
just it's good to have the feedback, thank you guys.
Yeah. So our membership, Audrey and Gina, we have, the coalition has had a membership so the coalition, by the way, is going to turn 14 years old next month. So when we first started, it was simply a matter of anyone that came to our meeting, you were basically a member of the coalition. Just sign the email list and we're going to send you emails and you're a member. And then I don't remember what year, but we instituted a membership to just generate kind of more ownership of involvement and generate income. Of course, that's always helpful. And people were very responsive. We had member perks and different discount at this store or free this at another store. But we were organized at the time, but as members of the board changed and we sort of lost the structure that was in place with the help of volunteers. And we've always had it on our website. But we just knew it was time to reboost. We are here 14 years into the organization. And the need continues to be great in terms of generating revenue and also just giving a way for all of you who are caring to invest through membership and generating revenue and giving you some perks back by committing to your involvement as an actual member. Doesn't preclude anyone from volunteering and being part of the meetings are always open to the public. But we would like to reboost and encourage people to get involved through membership. So Gina and Audrey, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, well, I will let Gina go through the details in just a minute, but I just want to make a comment. The coalition has new resources and new ideas, and we're really expanding. And this new membership drive is a way for us to connect and to better engage with our members of the coalition. You are really our eyes and our ears and our voice out there. So while we appreciate everything coming our way, this allows us to actually provide more going to you. So Gina's going to get into it, but we're really looking at what we can do to empower our members to go out and be better advocates and to better recognize. So between tools and trainings, we're really hoping to give back as much as everyone has given us. So Gina, if you would like to take it over.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the membership drive will roll out on March 15th, and we will send emails, paper invitations, and use social media to announce this. And there's a little sampling, if you can see what we've put together. We will have membership levels, and starting at the highest level, $1,000 for corporate gold membership, $500 for silver. This is yearly. This is an annual membership. $100 for community organizations, churches, and small businesses. $50 for an individual and $20 for students. The perks, and we're still working on this. Obviously, we're going to thank people immediately. We will send thank yous, personal thank yous to everyone. We will have discounted attendance fees for coalition-sponsored events, newsletter, coalition merchandise, goodie bags, which we are working on, and a membership card, plus tools to be a better advocate for survivors, and also access to special trainings, and then a one-time-a-year member-only event. So those are the perks that we're looking at. We will send personal thank yous to individuals, and then we're working on an event on April 22nd to, we will invite people who have become members at that time or by that time, and they can come in and pick up their goodie bags, and we will be celebrating our 14th anniversary at that time, and we will have a speaker. So that should be a nice way to pull more people in. Loretta is wonderful and is working on all of these different invitations and so on, and is also working on a brochure.
All right.
Anybody have any questions? So you all will be receiving invitations to join, and we're looking forward to all of this. Our goal, we are not really posting this anywhere, but our goal for the year is to have 100 members and $10,000. Of course, we'll take more than that.
And I would just like to add, this is a great way if you know of other people who are strong supporters of stopping human trafficking and helping our victims. This would be a great way to extend an invitation to them to join the group. Maybe they haven't had time to join our community meetings or participate in other ways, but we will grow with your help. So if you can share this and personally invite others that you know to become members, whether it's businesses or individuals, we would greatly appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Audrey and Gina. Thank you, Loretta. All right. Heidi. So
I'm here.
Yeah, okay, good. I did see you on the screen. So I mainly just want to say that I appreciate your involvement on the Attorney General's Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force, and also with the U.S. Attorney's Office, Western District Coalition Against Human Trafficking. I know that there's many hats that you wear, that you work to start the anti-trafficking team in the hospital, Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City, bringing that group of people together, training them, and still doing presentations and training, setting up policies within the hospital. I know we all appreciate being able to work closely with law enforcement around the state. That's really a key piece. And so if there's more you'd like to say about who you are and what you do, please do that. And we hand the floor over to you, the screen over to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Nanette. It's great to be here with all of you guys. It's always so refreshing to be in a group full of people who are passionate, about the same issues. So I appreciate being here today. And sorry for my frantic jumping in. My puppy decided to make an appearance. So if you hear noise, hopefully she's behaving in the corner. Before I forget, Keith, I have a pointer for you about the human trafficking hotline. I call them multiple times a week. and they are hard to get a hold of sometimes. So what I've learned is you'll call, you'll get that message that says there's a high call volume. It says that every time. They're going to ask you all these options. Just wait, like just stay on hold. I make it a game, like, you know, I'm doing dishes to see if I finish my dishes before the like waiting music is over, and someone will eventually answer. You will get connected with a human. It just, I mean, I've waited for an hour before, unfortunately, and sometimes it'll be 3 minutes. Like it's just kind of, I think, comes and goes in waves. So there is hope. You will connect with someone, just FYI. I will share my screen. I do have a PowerPoint for you guys. So to give you a little bit of background of who I am a sexual assault nurse examiner. If you have never heard of that, that basically means that when a child has been sexually assaulted in our region and they come into our emergency department, myself or one of my nurses will see these kids to collect forensic evidence, to make sure these kids are safe and healthy, to provide resources, and then we get subpoenaed to testify in court. And what I discovered as I started doing this work is that a lot of my patients not only were experiencing sexual assault, they were also being trafficked. And so I kind of just want to show you from a healthcare perspective what is specifically with kids, what trafficking looks like in Missouri. And really through trial and error, how we have learned to identify. We certainly don't do everything right all of the time. So I will just jump in. It's really interesting and kind of sad that so many trafficking victims come into contact with healthcare providers. And I say sad in that we really struggle and historically to have recognized victims. I think a lot of times we just both focused on the medical issue, or we misidentified. You know, we'd say, oh, this is someone who's in a psychosis, they're a drug addict, they're a prostitute, they're homeless, whatever, and we're not seeing this is a victim of exploitation. So one study done showed that 87% of trafficking victims had had contact with a healthcare provider while they were being trafficked. So a lot of trafficking victims seeking some type of care. Another study was done that showed 97% of victims who were seen by healthcare workers were never offered any help or resources. And I just talked to the Highway Patrol this week, and they said that only 2 to 4% of trafficking reports are coming from hospitals currently in the United States. So we have a lot of work to do in terms of we're coming into contact with victims. How do we recognize, report it, provide support? So I will tell you my own story and sort of how this lit a fire under me. This was about 5 years ago. I was a brand new forensic nurse. So my background is I grew up in southern New Mexico near the Mexico border. I worked in a county hospital for 5 years. So I was probably seeing tons of trafficking victims if you think about just the vulnerabilities and the geographical location at which I lived. And I was never given education about trafficking. I didn't know what to call it. I didn't really know what it looked like. Looking back, I cringe thinking about the missed opportunities. So I moved to Kansas City. I became a forensic nurse about, I don't know, I maybe been off orientation for a month or two. Hey, stop, dogs. And I really didn't know anything about trafficking still. Sorry for the growling. So I get called in to see this 16-year-old, and she's there for STD testing. And hold on, I may have to deal with the growling in a second. Okay, so she's there for STD testing. I go in to talk to her because the doctor thankfully was like, something just doesn't seem right with this kid. So they called me in to sort of assess the situation. So I'm seeing her in Kansas. She's a ward of the state in Missouri. She was found with an older girl in Indiana. She had been in state custody, ran away with this older female. They had been pulled over. They had drugs and weapons in their car. This older girl gets arrested. This girl gives the police a fake name. They realize she's a missing person and bring her back down here. And as I'm talking to her, this girl has 4 sexually transmitted infections. She has cigarette burns on her body. She has tattoos. And I don't know much about trafficking, but everything within me is like, something's wrong. Something's wrong. This is not a normal presentation of sexual assault. And in my mind, I'm like, I think this kid's being sold for sex. She's not admitting it, but like everything is indicating exploitation. And so I don't know how to screen her and I don't know how to ask. So I just straight out ask, you know, are you being sold for sex? Is this happening? And of course she's saying, no, everything's fine, it's great. But in my gut, I knew something was wrong. So I grab our social worker, and our social worker is like, I don't know what we're supposed to do either. So we called the human trafficking hotline, and they're like, okay, thank you for the report. We'll give this to the FBI. We'll get back to you in a couple of days. I don't know if you know anything about emergency departments, but we don't keep people for a couple of days waiting on what to do. So I'm like, okay, this is not going to work. I need a plan right now. So we call law enforcement in Indiana, and they're like, yeah, she's back in your guys' custody. Not our problem. So, I mean, they didn't exactly say it like that, but essentially that was the message. I call police in Missouri, and they're like, that happened in Indiana. We're not taking your reports. So I called Children's Division. It was a weekend, and they're like, yeah, we'll just see her on Monday. She can go home with grandma. So no one knew what to do with this kid. We send her home with grandma. She ran that night. And when I later talked to the FBI, they said, yeah, we think she's being trafficked and we don't know where she is. And for me, I felt like I was gonna throw up. It was just this missed opportunity where every system in place to protect this kid failed her, from us to Child Protective Services, to law enforcement, to, just everyone. And so for me, that was just, I felt this burning passion of, I never want that to happen again. I want us to be able to recognize these kids and really protect them the way that we are supposed to. So looking into it, I started to realize and look at why did this happen? So part of it is we had no protocol or policy about trafficking. We were not on the same page. No one knew what to do. There's a huge lack of education. So we have, okay, hold on, pause. I am so sorry. I have to stop the craziness and the barking and growling. I'll be back in a second.
Just so you know, we're not hearing any growling or barking.
Oh, you're not? Okay,
we're not.
Then I'll just let them do it. I just
okay.
want to be driving you guys crazy. Okay, well, let me know if it gets annoying.
Okay.
Okay, so I started to look into, I felt like I wasn't adequately educated. I can imagine the rest of my coworkers felt that way. And we didn't know how to collaborate. We didn't have good relationships with law enforcement or Child Protective Services, or, like the key people that we needed to be connected with when there was trafficking. We didn't have those relationships built. And so then when the situation presented itself, everyone was kind of like, I have no idea. And so that was a horrible moment, but I think a huge wake-up call for us to say, we have to do better than this. Part of the problem is that, so working, in science and a healthcare world, everyone wants to say, well, where's the evidence behind this? How do we screen for these kids? What do we look for? What's the evidence? Well, as we all know, kids are not mini adults. We can't take research done on adults and just apply it to kids because it's not going to be the same. And that's true of trafficking. So a ton of research has been done on trafficking, specifically sex trafficking, and it's been done on adult females primarily. A lot of it has not been done on kids. And so what we're finding is when we take all the indicators of trafficking for adults and apply it to kids, we're missing kids because it's not exactly the same. A lot of kids are just starting to be groomed into trafficking. And so it may look a little bit different when I see a 15-year-old who's starting to talk to a trafficker online versus a 20-year-old who has been trafficked for 3 years. Those are going to look a little, different in terms of health, mental health, addiction, things like that. So what we have learned through looking at our own data, our own patients, and more research that's being published is that asking the right questions is really key to identification with kids. And so thank goodness for Jordan Greenbaum. She's a physician in Atlanta. She published this tool that healthcare workers can use. And she basically did this huge research study. It was published in 2018, showing here's an effective tool to show if kids are being trafficked or not. It's not 100% perfect, but it's a really good indicator. And so we have started using this with our patients. We slightly edited it. So if you read the research study, our questions are just a tiny bit different, but it's based off of kind of what we see in our own patient population. So any kid who's gone through puberty that comes into our emergency department that says, I've been sexually assaulted, or there's some complaint of sexual violence, we ask them these questions. So here's what we're saying. Have you ever been knocked unconscious or knocked out? Have you ever run away from home or been kicked out of your home? Have you used drugs or alcohol? If yes, in the last 6 months. Have you ever been involved with law enforcement? And we ask these in a very trauma-informed way. So we build rapport before we ask these, and we don't just like flat out say, have you been in trouble with the police? You know, we try and ask in a way that's not going to make them feel defensive. Has a boyfriend or girlfriend in a relationship ever physically hurt you or threatened to hurt you? Have you ever had sex? If they say yes, how many partners have you had? Have you ever had a sexually transmitted infection? And so if they say yes to 2 or more of those questions, it's considered positive. Basically meaning they have risk factors that are indicative of exploitation. So if a kid says, yes, I run away from home frequently. Yes, I've had chlamydia. They're positive. We think that there's a high likelihood they are going to be exploited. These next 4 questions, then for sure we know there's exploitation happening. So have you ever been in a position where you had to trade sex or a sex act for something of value, essentially? Has a boyfriend or girlfriend ever forced you to have sex with another person? Has anyone asked you to do some kind of sex act in public? And has anyone ever asked you to pose in a sexy way for a photo or a video? Did you do it? I would say that last question is honestly probably every single kid in the world today that has a smartphone, unfortunately. But we do have a lot of kids who say, yes, these things are being asked of me. Yes, this is what's happening. And so if they say yes to those 4, we say trafficking, because with a minor, you don't have to prove force, fraud, or coercion, as I'm sure you all know. If there's some type of transactional sex, this is exploitation. This is trafficking. So to give you an example of sometimes what this looks like, these are all real patients. So we've seen, I've just de-identified them. Of course, this is not her real name. But Kiera was a 14-year-old that came in. She was in foster care. She had an extensive history of childhood sexual abuse. She had passed out at home. And so her foster family called EMS, and ambulance brought her into our emergency department. And she disclosed that she had been sexually assaulted by a stranger at a party a few days before. And she didn't know if that was related to why she had passed out. So our nurse got called in to see her because of that sexual assault disclosure. And upon screening Kiera, so our nurse asked those questions, and she's like, oh yeah, I have sex for money on the weekends. This is how I buy my phone, how I have my cute clothes. Like, she legitimately thought that this was like a way she could earn money. She's 14 years old. This is trafficking. There's no trafficker present. She's saying that she's facilitating it. It doesn't matter. If you have people looking at a 14-year-old who can't consent to sex saying, I'm going to exploit this child, we all know that this is wrong and this is criminal activity. So we flagged that this is trafficking. This screening tool is highly effective. So last year, as I was saying, we screened all pubertal kids who came in with complaints of sexual violence, and over half of them screened positive. What that means is that over half of these kids are either extremely high risk to be exploited, or we know they are being trafficked. And that was hundreds of kids that we were screening. So this is very concerning. The risk factors that we see most commonly associated with trafficking in kids in Missouri is that they have a history of sexual abuse. They have multiple sexually transmitted infections. They admit to having multiple sex partners. They're in state custody. They're homeless, or they frequently run away. They have a history of involvement with law enforcement. They're reporting survival sex or some type of transactional sex. They're reporting that pornography was created of them. They have a history of substance abuse or test positive for a substance in the ER. There's signs of physical abuse. They're not enrolled in school anymore, and they have unsupervised activity online. Like, some of those things are always going to be present every time we see a kid that is being trafficked. To give you an example, we saw a girl about 2 weeks ago. She ran away from home. Her cousin introduced her to a friend, a 33-year-old male who just got out of prison. He had been in prison for 13 years. He, was like, you can stay with me. As soon as she said yes to that, he was holding her against her will. He wouldn't let her leave. He was beating and raping her almost every day and would give her cash, let her get her nails done, lots of exploitation, absolutely grooming her to sell her for sex. She had multiple of these things going on, a history of sexual abuse. She tested positive for an STD. She had run away, she had been forced to watch pornography. She wasn't in school anymore, all of these risk factors. She was missed. She was unfortunately seen in one of our clinics several times. The reason she was identified is she actually had been arrested by police because the trafficker had forced her to commit a crime. She had been injured during that whole debacle of being arrested. So they brought her into our ER, and our nurse started talking to her and discovered kind of what was going on. So it can be hard to identify sometimes without asking the right questions. But she had lots of these risk factors that were happening. A huge thing, I would say, with almost every single kid, we see social media playing a role in how they meet their trafficker. Not every time, but I would say the vast majority of the time. In talking to the Highway Patrol, they said it only takes about 8 days from the time a trafficker starts talking to a kid online to convincing that kid to meet them in person. That is scary fast. So I have this video. I think for the sake of time, I will just skip it. But if you have time, go onto YouTube, Google like mom posing as 11-year-old. This will pop up for you. It is horrifying. It's this mom who goes undercover. She works for, if you haven't seen this yet, she works for this company called Bark, and it's an app to help protect kids online. So she poses as an 11-year-old. So they change all of her pictures, you know, they Photoshop it to make her look really young. And she sets up social media accounts. And within minutes, people are asking her for naked photos. They're talking to her about sex. She's just being inundated with this horrific, just sexual bombardment from predators, from traffickers, from perverts. So you can imagine if this is just a random person who, she wasn't like posting inappropriate pictures, nothing, just like an 11-year-old's account would be. You can imagine every single kid today is being bombarded with all kinds of crap online. And I think a lot of parents aren't aware, and a lot of traffickers are grooming kids online. So definitely check that out. It's pretty difficult to.
So Heidi, how long is it? How long is it?
I think it's like maybe 8 or 9 minutes.
Because it's 7 right now, and you have till 7:30 if you'd like us to watch it.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. I'll finish, and then if we have time, I can come back and show you guys how that. Hold on, let me move on from that. I think I need to exit. Okay, so I want you guys to think about if traffickers, what I should say is traffickers prey on vulnerabilities. I'm sure, as we all know, they find something vulnerable in a person that they can take advantage of to gain someone's trust, to meet an emotional need, whatever it may be. So this was a patient we saw, and I want you to think about the amount of vulnerability she has and what is going to happen to her after she is out of state custody. So this is Addison. She was a 14-year-old. She was raped from the time she was 5 to 10 by her mom's boyfriend. Her mom knew this abuse was happening, but failed to protect her. So eventually this was found out, and she was removed from her mom's home and placed in foster care. So a lot of trauma already happening in those first 10 years of life. At 12, Addison became pregnant. The baby was removed from her care. I should actually see several days later. They just realized as soon as she went home from the hospital that she was not going to be able to take care of the baby. So that they removed the baby. That's very traumatic. 6 weeks later, she was pregnant again. She had a miscarriage. So again, trauma on trauma. Several months later, she was arrested for shoplifting. She went to juvenile detention and was sexually assaulted by a correctional officer there. It was actually caught on tape, so there was no question about what happened. So is she being trafficked? As far as we know, no, in terms of we don't know that there's any kind of exchange. Is she being targeted? Is she vulnerable? 100%. And so I think when we see kids like that, it's really important for us before they start to be targeted by a trafficker to step in and say, what protective factors does this kid have in her life to stop her from continued exploitation and abuse? Another example of the kid we saw, this was Carissa. She was a 10-year-old. She was in foster care. She got into an argument with her foster mom and ran away. So she's walking down the streets of Kansas City. She has nowhere to go, and an adult man approaches her, and he's like, hey, you can go stay at my apartment, you know? And so she's like, okay, I have nowhere else to go. Sure. So she goes back with him. Once they arrive, he's like, well, you have to perform these sex acts if you want to stay here. Then he sexually assaults her. So she tells him, you know, like, I need to go get my stuff. I'll come back, which was her way of escaping, which was brilliant. She leaves. She ends up telling her foster mom when she gets home, and they come to the hospital. And so we flagged this as trafficking because you have an adult male who sees a vulnerable 10-year-old. Instead of helping her, he offers a transaction. You can stay with me in exchange for sex. And so we reported that as obviously sexual abuse, but also exploitation. So what do these kids look like? Sometimes they look totally normal on the surface. So if I walked into their room, I wouldn't be able to say, oh, this kid's for sure being trafficked just by looking at them. It's when I start to hear their social history and their story and really dig into their past and look at their medical record that it's like, okay, something's not right. I would say, I know this is not scientific at all, but there's just a gut feeling of something else is going on here. And again, risk factors are really helpful to look at. This is where screening is really, really helpful. So we saw recently, this was a 14-year-old. She had met a 22-year-old online through a dating app. He paid for an Uber to bring her to his house. So he's exchanging something with her right there. He's paying for something. He sexually assaulted her multiple times. He gave her meth, marijuana, pills. His girlfriend showed up and was furious that there was a 14-year-old at the house. So she takes this 14-year-old to a trap house and drops her off. This patient doesn't really know where she's at. She's given more meth and substances over the next 2 days. She does not remember much. What she does remember is that pornography was created of her during this time. She was tattooed on her chest. You could see it, like we took pictures of it. Homeland Security actually located her and brought her into our emergency department. She was intoxicated when she came into our emergency department and had to sober up before we could really talk to her and do her exam. But she told us she wanted to have sex with this 22-year-old. This is still trafficking. A 14-year-old cannot consent to that. And here you have an adult who is exchanging something of value with a child. And so he's paying for her Uber, he's giving her drugs, pornography was created of her without her, she can't consent to that. She was tattooed, she was in a known trafficking location. So by the time she left the hospital, multiple jurisdictions were involved with her case. On that note, I would say pornography is almost always a factor with kids who are being trafficked or exploited, and is what I have seen in my own personal experience. We know pornography drives demand. It creates a market where people want to pay to have sex and are wanting to pay to have sex with teenagers and kids. But it's also being created of kids and of teens by buyers and by traffickers. It's also shown to kids, I've seen this over and over, to groom them, especially kids who are being trafficked. A trafficker will show them violent pornography to say, hey, this is what is expected of you. This is what needs to happen. See, it's normal for people to strangle you while they're having sex with you, things like that. We know frequent exposure to pornography is a risk factor in kids being groomed as well, because they're learning really unhealthy sexual norms, if you will, from porn. We also see webcamming trends. So especially in the time of COVID, a lot of webcam sites have popped up where people will perform live sex acts in front of a webcam and be paid for it. And you better believe traffickers are taking advantage of that as well. We know that tons of pornography online is of kids, even kids who are prepubescent. And unfortunately, there's a huge demand for those things, and traffickers are providing that. So this is Katie. We saw her at the height of the lockdown. So I would just like to say, while everyone was being told to stay home, there were people still going out and paying for sex with kids. She was a 16-year-old. She has a history of childhood sexual abuse. She was in foster care. She met an adult man online. He came, picked Katie up, took her to his apartment. He drugged and raped Katie. There were several other females living in the apartment as well. I'm sure they were also being trafficked by him. So this adult male would let other men in to sexually assault Katie, and then they would give her money afterwards. The trafficker repeatedly raped, beat, drugged. He threatened to kill Katie. He would play porn on this huge screen in his apartment and then enact what he was seeing on Katie. He told her not to mention her age to buyers because it was complicated. He destroyed her phone. He destroyed her personal belongings. Thankfully, at some point, she was able to call her dad, and he came to get her, and they went to our emergency department. She did test positive for chlamydia, and she had multiple physical and genital injuries. So this was really an awful case. I think this is a really good, this case is a great example of the way that I think technology is changing trafficking a little bit. And so I think we are going to see more and more of this, where there's not an actual person sexually assaulting a victim. It's all happening online. So Harper was a 15-year-old. She met a 15-year-old male online who went to a nearby high school. They talk on multiple apps every day. She's really excited about her new boyfriend. She thinks he might be the one. They haven't met in person yet, but that doesn't matter. She knows him. They talk all the time. So he asked her for nude photos, which, you know, is not an uncommon thing among teenagers. And she says no several times. She knows she's not supposed to do that. And he's like, if you really love me, you'll send them to me. I'm not going to send them to anybody else. So she does it. Shortly after sending those nude photos, the boyfriend reveals he's actually a 45-year-old male. And he tells her, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to show these to your parents. I'm going to show them to everyone at church. I'm going to show them to everyone at school. So now this 15-year-old is put in this impossible situation. Do you do what the trafficker says, or do you not do it and then he ruins your life? So he has her log into a webcam site every night at the same time with a username and password, and she has to perform live sex acts for buyers. So buyers are logging in, watching this minor who is being coerced and forced into these acts, and they're paying her trafficker for it. No one is touching this kid. She is absolutely being trafficked and sexually abused. She shared a home with her parents while this was happening, which is so mind-blowing. Just kind of the way technology, I think, is really changing kind of the stereotype of what we think trafficking looks like. So she eventually told her parents, thank goodness. Law enforcement discovered that he was doing this to 6 other girls at the same time every night. So each girl had their own hour chunk that they were being forced to do this, while he was making thousands of dollars off of them. And law enforcement, as far as I knew, could never find him because no one knew who his real identity was. So crazy. So how do you report? How do we recommend reporting to our staff? We're all mandated reporters at the hospital. So if we suspect trafficking with a minor, we have to report it. So what we do is we make a hotline to Child Protective Services in the state where the kid lives. So that's Children's Division in Missouri. We contact local law enforcement where we think the trafficking is happening. We also are notifying the Missouri State Highway Patrol, and we make a report to the Human Trafficking Hotline. So it's a lot of reports. It's repetitive. Why are we making so many reports? So we have discovered that it's actually been incredibly helpful. The more investigators that we can get in on, specifically with human trafficking, because that lack of sometimes of education and collaboration still exists. And so sometimes we'll have kids where we're reporting trafficking. Maybe local law enforcement is like, I don't know if this is trafficking, but then the highway patrol comes behind and is like, it is trafficking, you know, because of X, Y, Z. And then like, oh, we didn't know that. And so they're able to work together. And we've seen that be just a beautiful collaboration that's happened. And so over-reporting has definitely worked in our favor. We have realized over the last year. And so I want to give out a shout out to the Missouri State Highway Patrol because they have been incredible to work with. We started partnering with them in June of 2020, and it has made a huge difference. So just to give you an example, we took care of a 14-year-old male. So it's not as common, of course, for us to see teenage males who are being trafficked, but we know they are. We do occasionally see transgender youth who are being trafficked as well. So he came in, he disclosed he had been talking to an adult male online. They met on a dating app, they had exchanged naked photos. He met this adult male in person. This adult male violently sexually assaulted this kid and filmed it on a laptop. And then took this kid back home. He was sneaking back into his house when his mom caught him and was like, where have you been? He disclosed the abuse and she brought him to the hospital. So we reported this as trafficking because child pornography had been created of him. Thankfully, the Highway Patrol was able to investigate it, and they broke up this huge pedophile ring from the sounds of it that we, of course, never would have known that was going on. But just because our nurse was intuitive enough to say, this child's being exploited, you know, there's pornography being created in this moment, and the Highway Patrol took it and ran with it, it really helped to protect other victims and to catch a lot of people participating in really horrific acts. And so that's just one of many examples where it's been really, really helpful to partner with them. So a lot of things I hear from adult hospitals. So with kids, it's a little bit easier in terms of reporting because we're mandated. We have to do it. There's not a choice. And that can also be awkward sometimes when people don't want us to report, we don't have a choice. But with adults, it's kind of the other way around in that, and I used to work in the adult world, so I do understand this. A lot of hospitals say if an adult is not giving you their explicit consent to contact law enforcement, you can't. You are not allowed to do that. You're violating HIPAA. And if you're not familiar with the hospital lingo, HIPAA is basically a privacy act. It's a federal law, meaning that we can't say you were in the hospital, what you were in the hospital for. Like, we can't disclose your private information to people. So if you look at HIPAA, I have this part circled, there's actually a law enforcement exception, and it says you can report patient information to law enforcement to prevent or lessen a serious or imminent threat to the health or safety of an individual or public. I think we can all agree when trafficking victims leave the hospital, they are in an imminent threat of being hurt, especially if they are, being trafficked by a violent trafficker. And so there is a HIPAA exception. That being said, I still talk to nurses in adult hospitals that are like, our lawyers will not let us report this. We can't do it. Okay. So I acknowledge that barrier exists. I would say, think about anonymous reporting. So you can report to the human trafficking hotline anonymously, basically meaning you're not putting any information down. You're putting down stuff that would be helpful to law enforcement. Like, hey, every Saturday night at this intersection, there's possible trafficking happening. You should check it out. You're not giving away any patient information, but you are helping law enforcement investigate. And so I think that's definitely a discussion worth having if you're in the adult world of kind of how can you protect patients. And you don't want to break their trust. If someone is saying, I don't want law enforcement involved, how do we still protect them? That's definitely a difficult thing for sure. So how does this apply to you? If you're not a healthcare worker, I think this is still applicable. I think no matter where you work or if you encounter kids, if you have your own kids, whatever it may be, if you see a kid with multiple red flags, so maybe they run away, they are addicted to drugs, they have a history of abuse, whatever it may be, it doesn't have to be things that are that extreme. Think about exploitation. If you're seeing some of these signs in conjunction with each other, report your suspicions, especially big kids. It's so important to protect them. And protective factors are huge. And what that means, I actually just listened to a talk this morning that with kids who are experiencing abuse or exploitation, the single biggest protective factor, basically what will help them heal, what will keep them safe, is having a safe adult in their world. And all of us can do that. All of us can be that for a vulnerable kid. And so I think that you don't have to do some huge extreme thing. You can be a person who is safe to a kid who doesn't have anybody else. So here's my contact info. If you have questions, comments, if you want that screening tool, whatever it may be, please shoot me an email. Or if you have any questions right now, I am happy to take them, and then I can back up and we can watch that really horrifying video.
Hi, Heidi. This is Heather. That was fabulous. Thank you so much for all that great information. I am wondering, how did you go about starting that relationship with the Missouri State Highway Patrol?
Yeah, great question. So they contacted me, Dan Nash did, and he was like, hey, we can provide a really great service to you. Here's what we can do. Every time you have a trafficking victim, call us. We'll start investigating, because I will not name any names, but we had previously been reporting to other agencies and we were getting no feedback, none. I mean, years of reporting trafficking, and it never went anywhere as far as we knew. There was just zero communication. And so I was like, I think it's a good idea to bring another entity in, because it does feel like nothing's happening with these kids. And so now we're calling Dan directly when we have immediate concerns with kids, and then he'll call us back and say, hey, this person confessed. Hey, this is what happened. Hey, this is kind of the feeling. So it's been great. I'm happy to connect you with him if you guys don't have a relationship yet.
Hey, I'm right here. I'm Christina.
Hello.
Yeah. I've been asked by Troop F to be a liaison for the Central Missouri State Highway Patrol area. So if you need anything, I have Dan Nash's cell phone on speed dial. I have his supervisor on speed dial. I'm right here. I would love to help anybody out that needs help. I'm right here.
Can you put your information in the chat, and I will keep your contact info, because we would love to partner with you at MU Healthcare.
Absolutely. You got it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for jumping in there.
So any other questions from the audience? I know it's everyone probably needs to take a deep breath. and I know Heidi, as you know, and Tracy's still on, and Heather might not know, but there was an attempt to connect folks with Dan. COVID, I'm sure, affected this, but a meeting had to be postponed. And so I actually just connected Heather, connected Tracy with Heidi, and then I've forgotten what Jennifer Green, who's at St. Luke's Hospital in Kansas City, to start that conversation among healthcare providers. But absolutely, Christina, and thank you. I'm glad you were here in our meeting today so you could speak up to that. There are many troopers who've been trained and are available around the state, which is what the great thing is with the Highway Patrol, because they are covering the whole entire state. And they can be that law enforcement first responder when there is a need to report, not when, when, not if, but when there is a need to report. So this can only be a good thing, continuing the partnership with law enforcement and other healthcare providers who are doing this work around the state. So I'm really glad to be bringing the university healthcare folks so we can move forward in our area better and smarter, because I know you've done such amazing work in the last several years, getting things started, getting policy, but this is that really important piece is being able to report and having a responsive law enforcement person able to respond right away. So on the Missouri State Highway Patrol website, there is an IPC, which is Interdiction for the Protection of Children, which Christina has been trained in, and in human trafficking. And it's an IPC/human trafficking unit that actually has been formed in the Highway Patrol. And Dan Nash is listed on there, but also his supervisor, who's Daryl Blankenship. And those two are listed and their contacts are on there. To give an example of Highway Patrol that I'd like to share is we had a mom, well, actually it was a grandmother who called about a 17-year-old granddaughter. She had heard me speak 2 years ago to a group of nurses in this Columbia area, just human trafficking, some basic awareness, and had held on to my number. Their 17-year-old had allegedly gone off to Chicago, and they were worried for her because they understood as the parents that she was going to visit a friend. So call came on a Saturday morning. They had contacted local law enforcement, not here in Boone County, but in a nearby county, and were told that she had to have been missing 24 hours before they could do anything, which really wasn't the case. So they felt at least Friday night that there wasn't anything more they could do. But I reached out to Highway Patrol, to Darren Blankenship, and by that afternoon, we had gathered information, social media, talking to family, that they were able to put out a bolo, be on the lookout, a national bolo. And by Sunday morning, they had identified where this one minor and 2 other minors were with a young adult, 20-year-old adult, in a hotel room, and were able to do a well check by Sunday morning. So, and the Highway Patrol has those connections to U.S. Marshals, FBI, Homeland Security, and so, you know, it's great to have Christina and these other Highway Patrol folks to call directly, because then they have access to all those other levels of law enforcement that are critically needed to really help and find and bring our children back to where they belong, wherever they've ended up in some other state. So thank you, Christina, and to all the other troopers. Their training has been going on for the last 3 years, building that capacity, building that expertise, and really doing things differently. And it's really changing the numbers of people that have been identified as victims, and perpetrators and traffickers that have been identified in pullover stops. So kudos to all the good work being done by so many people. See, we have some things going on in the chat room. Let's see. Yes. Acknowledging Ed, just appreciating Ed's story, being law enforcement and not having had that training. I know he's been connected with Dan, and so that training with Audrain Sheriff's Department and maybe other surrounding county law enforcement folks can be trained as well. So there is still a need. We're still on that upward climb to get everyone trained across the state of Missouri with local and county law enforcement.
Nanette?
Yes.
Could Christina give her email address again, please?
Yes, I'll send it again.
Okay, there it is.
I don't know, I don't see it, but okay.
I've got it for you, Marlene. So we're in chat, but you know, it may not be easy to navigate for everybody back and forth from the screen to chat and scrolling and yeah. Oh, Christina.Nolte, CHRISTINA.NOLTE at MSHP for Missouri State Highway Patrol .DPS for Department of Public Safety .mo.gov.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have the emotional capacity to watch this video? If anybody, we can go ahead and play it. If there are any questions before we do that, if anyone needs to get off soon and needs to ask their question now, let's just check. Oh, Laura, yes.
Yeah, Laura. Nanette, I went to a meeting last night and there was a nurse friend of mine there that had been hearing about a couple of websites. One of them, I thought she said, well, it was a welfare or something website where you buy things like you would on Amazon. And she was told that they were selling bed frames for $30,000 and each bed frame had a name on it.
Wayfair.
And do you know about that?
Wayfair, W-A-Y.
Wayfair, that's it. Okay, yes. And then she also found that same thing on Amazon. One of them, I think it was Wayfair, took theirs down. Amazon's was still up. She took a picture of it, so she knows it's on there, or it was on there. And it was children that were trafficked. Their names were on those frames, and people were buying those or putting money in or something. So you know about that. Okay, I didn't know about that. That was new to me.
I didn't know that was on Amazon, and I know that there was some discussion, conspiracy theory. This is so hard to know because we know there's no question at how pervasive trafficking is, and yet we also know there are many out in our communities who are promoting conspiracy theories, and so it's hard to navigate. And I didn't know about Amazon, so certainly we just have to stay vigilant. That's for sure. I did want to say when Stacy and Michelle said to look on their Facebook page, it's PACT with period in between, all caps, and it stands for People Against Child Trafficking. So if you want to find their Facebook page, that's what to search for. You know, one thing we find is many of our adult survivors of trafficking, when they learn, because they might come through the emergency department or maybe through probation and parole officer referring them to us, or many other ways that they might come to us, that when they learn that somebody's helped them identify that what happened to them was trafficking, then they've also been able to identify trafficking as a child, as a minor, and the pregnancy of one of our survivors who's an adult, being used at the age of 13 so that the mom could have rent paid. So it's like Heidi was saying, trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. So it's really that depth of trafficking in the lives of even our adults, and learning these experiences happen to them as a child. It's so do you feel like watching the video here, folks? We can Don't see anybody dropping off, we'll go ahead and play it so we can get that in tonight. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Oh, yes, Heidi.
No, I was gonna say, I'll play it. Let me know if you can't hear it or if there's
Okay.
any technical issues. All right, here we go. Maybe.
There you go.
Just thinking about it.
While it's buffering, I forgot, oh, here we go. Never mind.
Can you guys hear it?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet.
Hang on, let me stop sharing. I think I need to turn some kind of sound on when I share my screen. There we go. Let's try this again.
Thought I would be chasing child predators. It was 2 years ago when our team intercepted conversations between a 12-year-old girl and a 40-year-old pedophile. He wasn't just talking to her, he was abusing her, coercing her, collecting images and videos, and no one in her life, her parents, sixth grade teacher, or friends, knew what was happening. I have a sixth grader of my own. I have 3 kids, actually, but you don't have to be a parent to be devastated by this. I work for a tech company that uses artificial intelligence to detect issues like grooming and sexual predation, and this is something we see constantly. These abuses are occurring quietly and mostly go unreported, and we want parents to know exactly what we know about what happens online. So we made a plan.
A man has been arrested for allegedly raping a 15-year-old that he met over Snapchat.
Instagram has become the #1 social media site. At the top of the free download.
We've also seen firsthand the predatory symbiotic relationship that exists between Instagram and Snapchat.
We would create a fictitious 15-year-old girl, complete with a believable social media identity, put her online, and document how long it would take for a predator to approach her. But creating a person out of thin air is complicated. We needed photos, but we knew we couldn't use an actual teenager. It would have to be someone on our team. I'm 37, but our graphic designers assured me that with the wonders of photo manipulation, they could magically make me look over 2 decades younger. We bought clothes and accessories, studied body language and facial expressions. We methodically covered and edited signs of aging, wrinkles, weight shifts, and stretch marks. Meanwhile, we coordinated with federal, state, and local law enforcement. Then we built a story around her, a history, a family, a social circle. Libby was born in 2004 and is a sophomore who recently moved to Indiana. We created multiple online accounts for Libby, prominently displayed her age, and posted typical teen content. We even created virtual friends for Libby who would comment on her posts. With everything in place, we would launch the project, give it a few months, and see if anyone would buy it. So we hit the button, and Libby went live. Within the first hour of posting on Libby's accounts, 7 adult men contacted her. By the end of 9 days, that number was 92. The conversations ranged in severity from making sexual comments to sharing and requesting explicit photos and videos to manipulation and threats. The onslaught was so massive, it took 5 of us playing Libby full-time to keep up. We decided to move off-site where we could scale up the operation and gather as much information and evidence as possible. Since Libby is 15, men might try to falsely justify their actions towards her because of her proximity to adulthood. Would parents question, where's the bar? Would a 13-year-old face the same barrage of predators? A 12-year-old? How young could it possibly go? The graphics team transformed me into 11-year-old Bailey. Bailey is afraid of the dark. She hasn't had her first crush yet. She's still prepubescent. A parent might assume Bailey would be insulated from any sort of predatory attack. We launched our 11-year-old persona online.
444 and go.
One like from a guy whose profile photo is a penis.
So
let's say
1 minute and 7 seconds. We have a message request.
Although this, sorry, 2 more requests just came in. How much time? A minute and 40 seconds?
Yeah. How old are you? You go to the profile, you know that is a child. It also says in the profile that the child is in 6th grade.
Another one.
It's just lighting up, like the inbox is just boom, 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 boom.
An incoming video call in less than 5 minutes.
I can't see you. Don't be shy.
They all say don't be shy.
Few parents know just how dangerous these platforms are for so many kids. So we brought some on site so they could see for themselves. 11-year-old Bailey's persona was approached with an even more disturbing level of manipulation and requests. While the majority of the abuse happened from a distance, our child profiles also received requests to meet up in person, especially our 15-year-old persona. 28-year-old Keith was relentless. Like the others, he took no issue with Libby's age. He shared explicit videos of himself. He treated the virginity of an underage girl as a prize to be stolen. It was a tough decision, but if Keith wanted to meet Libby in person, we would let him. We synced up with our law enforcement contacts, and within 24 hours, we were on the ground and ready to meet. We already had evidence of what he had done online, but was he willing to carry things out in real life? We knew 37-year-old me attempting to pass for 15-year-old Libby would be a challenge. But I would wear a hat, a lot of makeup, and a big sweatshirt, and see if he showed up.
How you doing?
Good.
Okay. Is it what you expected?
Well, yeah.
So you going upstairs?
Wait, so do you want to go for a walk first?
Okay. What's wrong? Why you're not trying to rush upstairs?
What was that?
Why you're not trying to rush upstairs?
I don't know. I'm a little nervous.
Now let's go upstairs then. Don't be nervous.
I've never done anything like this before, so I'm a little nervous.
It's the first for everything.
Yeah.
Don't be. I'm not gonna rush you. We just go upstairs and talk.
Okay. Have you ever... Are you okay with me being 15?
I've never done it. But it's okay. I like to gentle, make you comfortable. I don't want to just get over the feeling and just, you know what I'm saying?
Are you hungry?
I'm trying to dodge it.
Cyber tips coming in from the National Center for Missing and Exploited.
Bark turns over these potential child predators to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Using the app has led to arrests like this one in Florida last year.
The brutal reality is that a predator doesn't have to be in the same room, building, or even country to abuse a child. Libby and Bailey may not be real, but they represent countless children who are being sexually and psychologically abused, both online and in real life. I think about how I would have felt as a young, impressionable child. I would have kept the abuses to myself for fear of being shamed and blamed. I would have suffered with it, secretly and quietly.
Hi, Mama. Hi, did you have a good day?
Yeah. Mama?
Yeah.
I was wondering, so in 2 more days you're gonna come back?
That's right.
Okay. I love you.
I love you too.
Our work has led to numerous arrests, but it's a drop in the bucket. Our work, nor the work of law enforcement or legislation, will ever be able to protect children as well as engaged parents and guardians can. When asked, my advice for parents is to talk to your kids early and often, know what apps they're using and with whom they're communicating. When facing crisis, kids need a soft place to land. Make sure they know they can come to you for help.
That's it.
Yeah. And so please check out Bark. I know Leah's on here and says that she uses it for her son. It is a very well recognized and respected app for parents. So please do check that out, even if you're not a parent. So you can tell the parent that you run into who's worried about their 11-year-old or 12-year-old or 17-year-old. Heidi, thank you. Always, this topic is tough, but I appreciate that we have an audience every month still wanting to learn, still wanting to engage. And you can also hear all of the actions that people are taking, all of the efforts that people are making. And that's what we want, is to take this awareness to action. And so thank you for ending with this slide of how this is relevant. And your last comment, oh, yes, Marlene is clapping. Everyone can appreciate you. That you just reminded me, I know that last thing, and something that I've said as well, is that the very least you can do is be that safe adult, the very least you can do. And there might be safe children that you're not even realizing they may be annoying, or maybe they're just really can't stand to be around them, how they dress, how they talk, but they are the very ones that you need to stick closer to, be annoying back, so that you can be eventually that safe, trusted person. But it is hard, but it is a critical piece. So thank you for that. Any other questions or comments, announcements? Marie, I know if you're still on, I forgot to ask if we had a legislative update. We know we've had Representative Person on here before talking about some of the legislation. I have a feeling it's not gone very far. Maybe, I don't know if our St. Louis people are tuned into some of the state legislation, but if there's anything that we can highlight that is going in the right direction in terms of state legislation, anybody can speak up, because we know that they're in session till May. So we're in the thick of things.
I have a question, Nanette.
Yes.
I have quite a few people that I would like to make aware of the April 22nd of the new membership drive. Is there something you can send out that we can forward and then add our own personal invitation so that we get the information properly covered?
Yes, it will be coming out. Absolutely, Marlene. And that's the goal, is for people like you to then share it with other people.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Nanette?
Yes.
This is Tracy.
Hi,
Are you
Tracy.
there?
Yes, we can hear you.
So sorry. I have a question. We got wind that there is a bill in the legislature right now saying that all hospital staff must be educated on human trafficking. Is there anyone in the group that knows about that or can give us more information?
No one speaking up. I do know that the bills that we were hearing about were really emphasizing education. And so it makes sense, but I don't know. We're doing some quick search and we can follow up with you. We're checking the Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence website. I don't know if, sounds like something we need to follow up on. Marie, if you're on here, if you are aware of any updates on state legislation, we will want to follow up with that, Tracy, because I know that the bills that we were hearing about were for different groups being educated, mandating education. So.
Okay, and I'll forward you a copy of what we got. So
okay.
I'll share that with you, Nanette.
Okay, thank you, Tracy.
Okay.
Is
great.
that so? What's your response to that from what you have seen?
For us, you mean?
Yes, for that particular
Well,
bill.
we were notified and asked about our education, the web-based training that we already have developed, and wanted to know, and they sent us the copy of the bill if what we had developed met the requirements for this. And so it seems like it's something that's moving on. So I'm very hopeful about that.
Okay, great. So Heidi and Heather, something for our healthcare folks to pay attention to. Because with this, if this bill does pass, it absolutely is a good thing. But then thinking about all of the healthcare providers who've had no training, no experience, and all of you folks who have been doing the work, making sure that these other healthcare providers around our state are having access to the right resources and not having to reinvent the wheel, not having to go like, oh my gosh, how can we do this? This is like, yeah. So we have to kind of unite around this being a positive thing, a good thing, making sure all of our folks have the support they need to do it, especially in our rural counties. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Tracy. Anything else? Thank you for hanging on a little longer, folks. Extra. We know we experienced that when we had our meetings in person. Meetings would end at 7:30, but everybody would be there another 15 to 30 minutes talking, networking, making plans, figuring out how to meet each other beyond, our coalition meetings. So this is great. Thank you. We're all craving for that opportunity to still know each other and be connected, to know each other's story, to make us, better in what we do in our own lives. So thank you so much for making this such a meaningful hour 45 minutes in community. Thanks for all the folks who've joined us from other places outside of mid-Missouri.